All right, everyone. In special session, Texas Democrats decided to leave their state to flee like babies and go to D.C., where they are now wasting taxpayer money taking selfies and doing like news interviews and stuff. And funnily enough, the other day Biden praised them. Oh, they're standing for election integrity and stuff. You know, you're doing exactly what we told the Republicans in Oregon 2 years ago they were idiots for doing, which was kind of true then as well. This kind of grandstanding, number one, it's doomed to fail. Because they're going to have to return to Texas at some point, and they're going to get arrested when they do. I do believe that Greg Abbott may very well follow through on that threat, and I do support doing that. They have technically broken the law there. They're fugitives from justice, I suppose. But the bigger issue that I have is not them walking out of Texas, but the endorsement of their actions thereafter by the entire Democratic Party, because it shows me the Democratic Party at the moment, by and large, is not interested in governing. It's not even interested. You have the House, albeit by a very slim majority. You have the presidency, honk honk, asterisk included. You kind of sort of have the Senate, sometimes, because it's a 50-50 split and the VP happens to be a Democrat and a hardliner. That being said, you'd think that you could focus on actually doing things, but instead they've been stalled out for months. The biggest thing Biden has done so far is cancel Keystone and some drilling leases, going after the energy sector, by the way, helping to cause some of the inflation that notorious individuals still blame on Trump from 15 months ago with his initial very small stimulus. The fact is this: Biden and Harris and Pelosi and all these others, they seem to be more interested in being on TV than actually tackling issues. So more attention is given by Biden and all of these others to a bunch of people that right now are in D.C. in a hotel taking selfies and taking, like that Gene Wu dude taking pictures of his food. And somehow this is stunning and brave. Again, on the taxpayer dime, the Texans are paying for every fucking cent of their trip. They're literally paying a bunch of fugitives from justice, just so we're aware of how demented the system can be. And this is not the only state in which that's possible, to not obtain quorum in this manner and have this sort of loophole being used as a workaround. To be clear, that's getting more attention than 5.4% inflation, partially because the legacy media doesn't consider that interesting. It's just transitory. Don't worry, when Biden passes $3.5 trillion in additional spending, that won't have any more than a bullshit transitory effect either. Yeah, you'll lose 50% of your dollar's value's actual wealth over the next year or two, but don't worry about it too much. It won't have actually a big impact on the economy. Orange man bad, as some would say. That's considered irrelevant. Unemployment ticking back up 0.3 in June is irrelevant. The fact that there are still millions and millions of people who want work and are out of work is irrelevant. The fact that millions more aren't bothering to seek work because of expanded federal unemployment benefits to the point where businesses which would be open remain closed simply because they can't find employees, that's irrelevant. The situation in Korea is irrelevant. Just about the only other thing that they even talk about right now briefly is Cuba. I haven't heard hardly anything about South Africa or even about, really, over the last couple of days, about Haiti in the news. All of this is irrelevant. The only thing that the Biden administration and all of their congressional cohorts seem to want to do is give interviews. They want to govern via TV. It's not 1970 anymore. People are on the internet, and you see, like, when Gene Wu and these morons from Texas are doing the grandstanding thing, they're getting their asses handed to them. They're constantly getting berated, especially by their own state constituencies, because here's the thing. The reason they're walking out and going to Congress to bemoan their fate, I'm so sad I had to come here for free, on a private jet charter, by the way, eating food that's being paid for by people I'm refusing to represent. Here's the problem. Every constituency, I believe, in the entire country supports voter ID. That particular part of the Texan proposal is wildly popular. By the way, including for mail-in ballots. Especially it should be for mail-in ballots. No, you shouldn't have universal mail-in ballots. They should go back to the old system. It should be absentee ballots have to be applied for in a reasonable time frame. The idea of not allowing people to harvest ballots from people unless they're relatives makes sense. Otherwise, you get political action groups sending their people out to elderly people's homes to grab their unfilled out ballot and fill it out for them. Don't worry, I know you're 80 years old, you don't see too well, I'll take care of it. Here's $10, by the way, God bless. This happens. And it's almost impossible to catch. I love it when people say that, oh, voter fraud's so uncommon. Well, if there's no methodology to catch it because you don't have a voter ID law, then of course it's going to seem largely absent. You're not going to catch anyone. There could have been 1 million fraudulent votes cast in the last election. We wouldn't know. By the way, these audits aren't going to catch that either, by and large. You'll find some discrepancies, but you're not going to find hundreds of thousands of examples, assuming that they exist. It's just not going to happen. Of course, honk honk, the election was totally fair. Biden is American as apple pie. He's as popular as vanilla ice cream. Definitely vanilla in his case. Although he pretends to like chocolate. I'm thinking in private probably differently. And he pukes it up afterwards. He's like, oh my God, get me the Briars. We've got so many issues we could be focusing on, and the party that's ostensibly in power, more or less, doesn't care. The Democrats literally don't care. Even their own leftoid constituents. I agree with Biden and people like that slow walking on things like universal pre-K, UBI, all of these other bullshit things that'll have to be paid for by mass inflation and therefore a tax on the broader middle class. I agree with not doing these things, but they're not even being talked about. Biden's not even addressing his continued willingness to actually parlay with the leftoids in his own party while using them as a cheap cudgel. The Texas Democrats, who are breaking the law at this very time, are hailed as heroic by the Democratic Party. My God, they're still trying to convince Joe Manchin to let him just do away with the filibuster just this one time and let us federalize the election system. Because reasons. By the way, he's nuts if he actually decides to go for it. Right now he's a kingmaker. He would just be a prince if he were to do that. And I think he knows that, and Sinema might be dragged into it too, and possibly Shaheen at some point. The Dem Walkout is baby-like. It's childish. It's also just grandstanding. It's doomed to fail. Eventually, the Texas voter ID law will go through. That's just the sum and substance of it. Some of these Dems probably, when they're the Democrats, what you should be doing, if you're in one of their constituencies, you should be mass emailing them, ringing the phone off the hook, and putting up posters at the moment. You should have a poster, missing our fucking representative. Missing the member of Congress that we pay to represent us, and they're not doing their job. By the way, is it possible to conduct a citizen's arrest on these fugitives from justice? I know you can't arrest them unless you're a cop, but they can be detained, right? Technically speaking. Fugitives from justice? Yeah. Should have little wanted posters. Somebody in D.C. By the way, disclaimer, this is totally just a joke, but if someone were to put up missing, reward for a return, or something like that all around D.C., it'd be kind of funny now, wouldn't it? It's something Cernovich would probably get on, or Posobiec or something like that. It'd be funny. It's baby-like and it's moronic. Also, I think the Democrats, again, as I said earlier this year, they're overstretching. They're doing what Democrats typically do, and I don't think they realize how bad the optics are for this. There's a reason why Joe Biden's disapproval rate has risen 8 points in the last 6 goddamn months, and that's in push polls. Well, keep it up. Keep up the good work. Exhaust your mandate even faster, and then retire. Go golf with Obama. That's about all. Peace out.